Good evening, everyone, and welcome back. Welcome back to the PorscheCooled Podcast, the podcast where we talk about all things Porsche. Owner stories again today, another owner stories. We're up to what number is this? It's getting very confusing for me, I have to say. If you don't know me already, my name is Michael Barth. This is the PorscheCooled Podcast. This is the owner stories episode. We have two episodes a week, owner stories, and the other episode on Fridays, where I chat with my mate Steve in Australia. Steve is the other part of this podcast, the other half, not the missing link, the link. So if you haven't heard any of those episodes, you should catch up on them. We're up to, we must be in our 60s now. I think this is going to be number, I think, episode 67. This is Owner Stories 16. So Owner Stories is an episode where I just chat to other Porsche owners around the world. It was an idea that came about months ago now. We do it every week. I wasn't going to do it every week, but I do it every week. I do it solo without Steve. Steve and I just do Fridays. But this is episode 16 of Owner Stories. The feedback from Owner Stories has been pretty amazing, actually. You guys are really enjoying it. You're really enjoying hearing other people's stories. I'm really enjoying talking to everyone, actually. And I think, and this happened again the other day in a previous one, that people think their story is not special enough. They listen to other owners' stories, and it's funny, the owners' stories that they listen to, that person off camera said the same thing to me, they didn't think their story was special enough, and then the people coming on are going, oh, I don't think my story is as good as, James or Nick or, Barry or whatever. So every story is important. Every Porsche journey is important. I mean, sometimes it takes us a long time to get there. Sometimes it takes us a very short time to get there. I know the challenges with buying a Porsche. I mean, I'm still looking for, I have one. I have a 997 Carrera. Most of you guys know that. Unfortunately, I'm separated from my car because I work in Bahrain. I am actually recording this in London because I'm in London over Christmas. And I haven't seen my car for a year, primarily because of COVID and not being able to travel. And also because of the restrictions in Australia. Australia's very zero number for cases, and they're very restrictive, and you have to quarantine in a hotel, and the flights are very expensive. So that's the reason why I haven't driven my car. I'm sorry for the people that know that already. It's probably very boring. I'm trying to acknowledge that there are new people joining the podcast, and sometimes they join at a latter episode and they don't really know what the hell is going on, so to speak. But anyway, the owner stories are really good. I have been recording these in advance. So this one you're listening to today, I would have recorded probably a week or a couple of weeks ago. I probably recorded it just before Christmas. That's what I'm doing. It's a Friday night here in London. I've managed to hook up with another great story. This is Ryan, and Ryan's coming in from Chicago area, I think it is. Yeah, Chicago area in the US. Who else was? Todd. Todd Stone City Outlaw was also from the Chicago regions, Chicago area, or outside of Chicago. So Ryan's on today. I'm going to see if he's online. He's about to come online in about 10 minutes. I'm just recording this intro before I get him hooked up. But this is PorscheCooled Owner Stories. So let's get Ryan on the line and talk about his Porsche story. Okay, welcome back, everyone. Welcome back to the PorscheCooled Podcast. Like I said, this is Owner Stories. This will be number 16 of the Owner Stories series. And today we have another, I'm pretty sure he is. We have another first 911 owner. And we have Ryan coming in from the US, from Chicago area in the US. So Ryan's here with me now. Hi, Ryan. How are you?
Good afternoon. I guess good evening for you, Michael. Appreciate you having me.
No, I'm glad you could do it today. I know you've been busy. Ryan's in the afternoon in the US, and I'm in the evening here in London. So we managed to tie it up quite well, I think. So Ryan, these owner stories, they always start. I always like to start them with the same question, and the question I always like to start them with before we get into what car you have and what you bought and everything, even though it is in the title and people will know, is the first memories. I always say the first memories of seeing a Porsche or the first memories of seeing a 911. Did you have friends or family, or do you have any childhood memories of 911s, or is it more a general interest in cars and the automotive sort of side of things?
Sure. Yeah. So for me, Michael, I think my journey started with just being around cars in general. And so I grew up, growing up in the Metro Detroit, Michigan area. From the start, I was always surrounded by, the quote unquote motor city, right? Automotive and car culture. And so my father and I would attend the North American International Auto Show in Detroit every year as a kid, drooling all over the cars. And so, my uncle and my father, my dad's brother, had a thing for cars. And, I think that's where a lot of my inspiration and dreams derived from to start from growing up. And so, my uncle, just to give a background about the cars that kind of got me to where I am now.
Yep.
He had a 1978, a 78 Trans Am. I'll never forget this car. It's funny. So, I have a picture of myself as a baby and he put a cigarette in my mouth and I'm on the hood of his Trans Am.
Oh, really?
And my mother's just shaking her head like, what is going on here? But that 78 Trans Am, I'll never forget. It was a small block V8 5.0 liter 4-speed manual. And it had a silver blue Firebird on the front hood. And it was just pure American muscle. Right. And so, from there, my uncle had acquired a GMC Typhoon. Not sure if you're familiar with the Typhoons.
No, I'm not. What is that?
So just a little bit. So it was built for 2 years, and it was a Corvette inspired. You could call it a truck, like a small SUV, and it was almost 300 horsepower, turbocharged, and it was only for 1992 to 1993 they were built.
Okay.
4-speed automatic, had almost 400 foot-pounds of torque. And, back in the early 90s, it was pretty quick. It was, 0 to 60 in under 6 seconds. And, they only made 4,000 of them, of which my uncle had this really cool, rare teal color. And from, the research I did years ago, I think that the Typhoon they only made about 100 of them in this teal color, which was really neat. And he still has it today. I don't know the condition or if he's still driving it, but he still has it today.
Oh, really? He still has it. So you haven't seen it? You haven't actually seen the condition or?
Not yet. And so we're going back home. My wife and I are driving back home to Detroit for the holidays, and I plan on stopping by to see, how that car is doing.
You should.
Yeah. And then so
that was the start of it. So does that mean you wanted to get into American cars? You wanted to buy American muscle type cars, or is that the direction you're heading in from your uncle's, passion?
It was at first. And then from there, he purchased a 95 C4 Corvette, black with a really cool red interior.
Yeah.
But to get to your answer, to get your question, I've always been around cars, and I think my first Porsche memory as a kid growing up was really I don't know if you've seen in the 90s, the early 90s, the Bad Boys original movie with Will Smith and Martin Lawrence.
Yeah.
And so if you've seen it, the black 964 turbo 3.6.
Yes, I do.
And it was on the cover of the movie. And I'll never forget watching that movie. And I was like, wow, that is like superstar, just unbelievable, beautiful car. And from there to the early 2000s, when Gone in 60 Seconds came out with Nicolas Cage, at the time I was in high school. I don't even think I had my license. I'm dating myself now, but obviously everyone drooled over the Shelby GT500 from Eleanor, the two-door fastback Mustang. But then if you remember that movie, you'll remember the beginning scene of when when one of the actors drove past the Porsche dealership at night. He grabbed his brick from his trunk and threw it through the windshield of the dealership, and sure enough, that was a silver 99 996 Mark I on the center of the rotating turntable in the dealership that he stole.
Oh, was it? Was it a 996? Yeah. Huh.
It was a 996, and and it looked to be.
It's interesting though. Just sorry for a second. It's interesting though the Bad Boys turbo. That's influenced, I think, so many of us. That car in that movie has ruined all of us, I think, because other people have said the same. That's something I always remember as well. It's just, you just wanted one. It's just like you just knew you wanted one. You knew you probably couldn't get one at the time. You just thought it was unattainable, but, you just wanted one. Sorry, Ryan, go on.
No, absolutely. You're spot on. And then, and then that scene in Gone in 60 Seconds when they stole that at the time when I was, that age, I didn't know, only the thing I knew about it was a 911, right?
Yep.
I didn't know the generations. I didn't know the history behind the 996 and that it was, the first water cooled engine, so on and so forth. And so, coming full circle, I met my wife years ago, and so her father was into Porsches, and that's what really jump started me into the Porsche community and the culture. He had a 66 short wheelbase 911, all original in polo red and black interior.
So this is the one you sent me images of, which is absolutely beautiful. So he doesn't have that anymore?
Unfortunately, Michael, we had to sell it earlier this year due to just family medical reasons.
Yes.
But he had the car from 1972 until the end of 2019.
1972. So it was 6 years old. He bought it when it was a 6-year-old car.
Exactly.
This car is just, me being into 912s and that being a 66, obviously it's a 911. It's the one you want. Polo red, which I have to say, Polo red in a 911, there's one in the UK that's come up for sale, Ryan, and I'm not a big fan of red cars, but I have to say that the 60s 911 in the Polo red, it actually, especially when it's got the black interior, when it's got the black leatherette interior or leather interior, it does look very, very special. And when you sent me those pictures the other day of his car, it made me go back to classic cars in the UK and look at that car that was for sale again, the 912, because I thought, hang on, am I missing something here? Because the one that Ryan sent me actually looks really, really good. So your father-in-law, so you see it in Bad Boys, you see it in Gone in 60 Seconds, and that's a 996, so you're in a water-cooled. And then, your wife today, or your future wife at the time, her father has got a 911. So when did you decide that you wanted to buy one? And it was only quite recently, right? So
That's right. So that's a really good question. And my story is kind of unique. And so I drove my father-in-law's 911, air-cooled, obviously, and it was a pain to figure out where the gears were in that gearbox.
the dog leg,
yeah. Exactly, right? And so from there, one of his close friends, basically one of his nephews, essentially, was big into Porsches because of my father-in-law. And so his name's Michael. Same name as Michael, and he had purchased a 991 GTS. I think it was 20. I forget what year it was, but it was in Carrera white, black wheels, PDK though.
Yep.
And so he brought his car over right before we sold my father-in-law's car to take pictures.
Yes.
And it was my first time meeting him, and he threw the keys to me. He said, "Hey, go ahead, drive the 911." And at that moment in time, Michael, is when I knew I needed to buy one.
But you're driving, you are, if it's a 991.1, which I'm guessing it is.
It is.
Yeah, 991.1, so naturally aspirated GTS. PDK, that's not a problem in that car. It's a very, very good car. So that's it. Once you get into that. So didn't you think then, well, hang on, I want to buy a 991?
I did. And then I realized that 991s were out of my budget.
So the 991s, a 991, the cheapest 991, for example. So when you started looking, you started to look at it. Did you look at a 991 first? You did actually do the search on them and think, hang on, maybe I could get a 991, and then you saw the price. But what is the level of 991s when you started looking in US dollars around about?
Sure. So just to level set, US dollars, 991 for a GTS like that would have been at the time would have been probably around, I would guess, north of 25,000, if I had to guess, around that time. And so the other deciding factor, Michael, was that I needed a new family car. My wife and I needed a new daily car between the two of us.
Yes.
And so I couldn't go all out, and that had a play with the budget.
Okay. That's fair enough. So there's a balancing act there and we'll get onto your family car. I don't want you to bring it up yet, but we will get onto that. So you're balancing it. You know you want a Porsche. You know you want a 911. And 991s, even used 991s, they're still quite expensive. I know even in the UK, they're not super cheap. Obviously in Australia, they're very, very expensive still. Well, not very expensive, but much more expensive than a 996, So the 991's out of your budget. You know you have to get a family car as well. So then do you start looking at 997s, or you just go straight to the 996 because of that movie imprinted into your brain from when you're a kid?
Sure, sure. So, as you mentioned, I know I needed to find a family car, and so from there, right before the 2020 mark, my wife and I actually were looking for an SUV, and so we ended up getting a Macan, a 2018 Macan, and in white, Carrera white, and there really jump started me as well. It kind of just all this momentum, right? And then now I got into the Macan, and now I've got the itch after driving, the 991.
Right. Okay. I thought you got the 911 first. So you got the Macan first. So then you know what a Porsche. Then you're starting to feel like this is a bit like the this is a bit like the 991 that you had driven. It's more modern, and then you feel okay, I like this. So then you start.
Correct.
That's why you start looking for the 996. So what Macan do you have? Is it a S?
Correct.
Carrera, is it a Macan S or a Macan Turbo?
It's just it's this funny. So again, back to it's just the base.
Okay.
And
There's
so we live in
with
Chicago, right? And so I think, it's a great car. It's a great daily car. We really, at the end of the day, we wanted something that we could get to and from, and didn't want to spend a significant amount of money, right?
Yes.
I bought it basically like new. I mean, it had 2,500 miles on it, got a pretty good deal, all white with the Luxor beige interior. It's not fast in terms of SUV fast, but it's got enough power for us around the city. Strategically knowing that in the back of my mind, I was teeing this up for my sports car, which is, the 996.
And I think the Macan, the Macan in the base, we'll get onto your 911 in a second, but the Macan in the base I think is fine. I think the Cayenne in the base is a little bit underpowered. The Cayenne in the base is a little bit underpowered,
sure.
But I think in the Macan, the base is actually fine. As you know, Steve, that I did the podcast with, his wife has a turbo. They have a Macan Turbo. I think you know that. I think it's a 2014 or 2013. But Steve managed to find a really good price for that car, and he bought it used in Australia. And in Australian market, the turbos were actually cheaper than the GTSs. He was looking for a Macan GTS. This is not the new model. This is the model before, and the turbo was actually cheaper. So he bought a turbo, and he got a really good price on it. And it's just what's there at the time, isn't it? You have to be sensible, and you have to buy something within your budget. And also, like you said, we're leading to your 911. So you buy the Macan, and then you think, okay, 911 is coming very shortly. So what happens then?
Exactly. So at first I wasn't even looking for a 911, to be honest. I knew I always wanted one, but I didn't know at the time what the market was like. Right. And I always heard, air cool. I mean, obviously everyone knows the air cooled market's just, through the roof. And I think it's steadily, maintaining and plateauing, if you will. But I was looking for, I was actually searching for a Boxer first.
Okay.
Right. And so a 986, I really didn't nail down a budget to say, but I knew I had a range in which I wanted to fall within. And so I was looking at 986. I was looking at a 987.
Yes.
I went as far as to look at, there was an RS60 available
I know
in the
one.
area.
Yeah.
And if you know that one, it's got some, special, unique, history behind it.
Yeah.
And so I was looking at those vehicles, and then lo and behold, one of my really good buddies who had a 987S, he had a 987S and then upgraded to a 997 C2S Guards Red, which was absolutely stunning and beautiful.
Yep.
He used to live here in Chicago with me, and he's a patent attorney, and his law firm partner has a car collection.
Okay.
And my friend George goes, hey, just FYI, not that you would be interested, but one of my partners at my law firm is thinking about getting rid of his 996 911 Mark II. And he's like, he lives, close by to you in the Chicagoland area. And, why don't you reach out to him and check out his car? And so I went out. It's about an hour drive from the city to the suburbs of where, he lives. And I had to be honest, Michael, I had no intentions of buying the car. Right. And so, I drive about an hour outside of the city to meet him. he had a folder full of maintenance records, had the IMS done from Ellen Engineering, was completed. At the time, it had 59,000 miles, and it was a 2002.
Okay.
And I took it out for a test drive, and immediately heard the intake and exhaust, and was sold. And
so let's go back one step. So you said you were looking for
yeah.
Boxsters. Had you actually test drove any? Had you driven any Boxsters? Had you looked at any Boxsters, or you got this call from your friend and that was you went on that direction?
Yeah, right. So I actually went to I went to one of the Chicagoland dealers to test drive the RS60, and while I was on the way to the dealer to test drive it, they called me and said, "Hey, it's sold."
Oh, okay.
And so between that and this 996, I did test drive. I test drove another 996 that was a little beat up. So I passed on that one. I knew I wanted one. If I wanted a car, I wanted one with, a well-documented maintenance history, a good, clean example, semi-low miles. And so yes, to answer your question, I didn't actually test drive, wasn't able to test drive a Boxster.
Okay.
But I test drove multiple 996s.
So you drive this 996. The owners, obviously, it's been well looked after. It's well documented. Once you've driven it once, you want it. Do you seal the deal there and then, or do you say to him, okay, I'm a fan of PPIs. Do you get an inspection of the car, or do you trust the service records and the maintenance history of the car?
Great question. And so one of the things that I wanted to do, he had a lift in his garage, right? Okay. And so coupled with the maintenance documentation, and he was a very meticulous guy. You could just tell when I pulled up to his house, his garage was spotless. He did the favor of putting the car up on the lift to take a look for any, leaks. And so I'm a big fan of PPI. It's funny. So I did a PPI, but I did a post-purchase inspection.
Oh, okay. Post-purchase.
Yeah,
no, that's
exactly.
still good. That's still good though. So we'll talk about that. So you put it up on the lift, and it was fine underneath. There was no issues that you could see.
There were no issues, no leaks, nothing, and it was. You could tell it was definitely well taken care of. And again, like I mentioned, he had a folder full of maintenance records, and I went through and combed through each one over the course of its life. And knowing the relationship that my friend George had with him, they were all in the car community. You could just tell that he took really good care of his vehicles, and I was confident that this was the case. So
we come back to the. It's like the safe place, isn't it? You trust the seller. The seller is known by someone that you're good friends with. Then you check the car out, and the car seems to be perfect. So tell the listeners exactly what the car is. So it's a 02 996.
That's right. So it's a 2002 996, so Mark II, C2 Cabriolet, yes. Manual transmission. It's in seal gray with a black leather interior. And, at the time it had these really, and I think you saw them on.
You showed me that. I saw that picture. Yeah. They're not great.
No, they had these ugly aftermarket wheels, and I'm understating that when I say ugly. And so I knew one of the first things that I wanted to do was find a good clean set of 18-inch turbo twists. And I happened to come across a set here in the Chicago Porsche community. Yeah. And they were hollow. Which is even a plus. Okay. Save a little bit of weight.
Yeah.
So that's the car in a nutshell, and it's got a. Yeah, go ahead.
I'll just tell the listeners. So the seal grey. So Ryan's car, it's got the turbo twist wheels. So the turbo twist wheels, they're the C4S wheels, aren't they?
That's correct.
They're the same on the Carrera 4S. Yeah, that's those wheels, which are a lovely wheel. Correct. The other wheel that the owner had on Ryan's car, I guess you can explain it like it's. I don't know what that wheel is actually. It looks like it's trying to be a Porsche wheel, but it's not a Porsche wheel. But it's a big upgrade, Ryan. It looks, back to the OEM. And I, when I purchased my 997, and you probably heard me talk about this before, it had Tech Art wheels on it. And the Tech Art wheels I didn't have an issue with. I had an issue with the fact that they were 20-inch.
I remember seeing that video of yours.
Yeah, and they're just a little bit too big. So that's why I went back to the lobster claws, which, were just, to me, much, much better, and OEM as well. So the wheels look great. So you found the wheels. What options did your car come? I'm just looking at your pictures while I'm talking to you. What options did your car come with standard? Was it heavily optioned?
No, I think it was pretty base. I think the sticker price, and I'm trying to pull up the actual option list here, but the sticker price was about 89. Back in 2002, it didn't have the MO30 suspension, did not have that.
Yes.
Did not have PSC. It's there's no PASM. There's no none of that.
Yes.
And so I want to say the only thing that off the top of my head that it doesn't have a Bose system, so
Okay.
it's stock radio.
Yeah.
I think it's just pretty much just bass. Off the top of my head, I can't recall what else it has. Leather interior, but other than that, it's no frills.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I understand. I mean, look, my 997 is pretty much the same. Mine had Bose, and mine has telephone kit, which is now extended telephone module.
Oh, that's right.
I don't think my car has anything else apart from those two options. I think that's I can't even think what else it had. I think that's pretty much it. So I'm the same thing. My car was pretty much spec'd base. Oh, the wheels were an option. The original wheels on mine were 19-inch sport, one of the sport wheels, which are very heavily spoked. That was actually the original wheel. Obviously, it wasn't the Carrera S wheel. But there's nothing wrong with that. The fact is,
you found it.
Yeah, and you found you found the options?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
It's funny. So the original 18-inch alloy Carrera wheels, which were not the wheels that were on the car, right? Yes. When I purchased it, it had the 446 option, which is the wheel caps with a colored crest.
Yes.
It had black leather interior, black mats, the comfort package, and the Technic package. I forgot the heated front seats. That was it.
You've got but that's a pretty big option, Ryan. Heated front seats,
especially in Chicago, right?
Yeah,
but
exactly. That's what you need.
Yeah, but I don't drive it during the winter. And then the 3-spoke wheel, so that's huge for the 996.
Okay, so it did have a few options. Someone did actually option it a little bit. So the wheels, I just want to ask a quick question about the wheels. The guy that owned it, that you purchased it off, did he actually change the wheels out? Or was it done, did he own this car from new?
No. So these were the wheels he purchased from the original owner.
Okay. And
the original owner put these aftermarket wheels on, and the original wheels nowhere to be found.
Okay. But you've done well. I mean, you've put the C4S wheels on them, the Turbo Twist, and they're a great wheel, and they look really good on the Cabriolet. That's for sure. You bought so you decided so you just looked underneath the car, you checked it out. The guy's a trustworthy guy. He knows your friend. So what do you do then? You give him a deposit. You decide there on the spot. Okay, I'm going to take this car now.
Great question. So I actually I drove the Macan home, and I sat on it for a night, and I talked to my wife. I said, "Hey, I think this is the car." I wasn't expecting to love the car, and I drove it, and it was, again, well maintained, documented history, which was a big criteria. The IMS obviously was another big criteria for me. That was done. He had proof and documentation, and it was a clean example. And it was a Cabriolet, and I knew I wanted a Cabriolet or convertible. And so I slept on it. And then the very next day, I drove back out to the suburbs and I bought the car.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So what was the reasoning? What was and I asked this to people who have bought Cabriolets, and, I've had Justin on from Australia and I've had Connor on from Utah, who both have Cabriolets. What was the reasoning why you wanted a Cabriolet?
So the main reason, really, to be honest, Michael, was for my first sports car. One of the things that I always wanted was to be able to have that open atmosphere experience. And my wife also wanted that.
Okay.
And so, between the two of us, we were both saying, hey, why wouldn't we want to try a convertible, especially, granted we're in Chicago, but during the summer, spring and fall times here, it's absolutely beautiful and gorgeous to drive down Lakeshore Drive with the city skyline behind you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And driving right up on Lake Michigan, and there's nothing like it. And so we've done that as much as we could this year, especially with COVID, just going out for drives and whatnot. And it's been experience. And I think it's also one of those things where when you have your top down and you're above 4,000 RPM and getting that 3.6 liter, everyone knows that sound, that intoxicating, addicting sound. It puts another level of experience and another level of just overall just passion when you hear it, open air, and the engine's in the back.
Yep. Fantastic. So you bought the car, you went back out, you purchased it. So then you said you did an inspection after the fact, after you paid the money. So you picked up the car and then you take it to a Porsche specialist in Chicago or a Porsche dealer. What do you do then?
I did. I took it to a very well-known, reputable independent dealer here in the Chicagoland area.
Yep.
Midwest Performance Cars, phenomenal customer service. The people over there are great. And I took it in for a PPI. And at the end of the day, there were very minor things. And they found, and one of the things that they found was the front headlight washer was not working.
Yep.
You know, the little silver front headlight washer, right? The parking brake needed adjustment. The air filter needed to be replaced. So I ordered it myself. I replaced it myself. A new gas cap, the seal on the gas cap was cracked, right? Yes. So I went on Pelican Parts and I ordered a gas cap, replaced that myself. And then really the tires, which were on those horrible wheels. And I knew that going in that I needed to buy a new set of tires. So when I bought the wheels, I bought a brand new set of tires as well.
So what tires did you end up buying? Did you buy N-spec tires for the Porsche, or did you buy the tires for the car? I guess you got a slightly bigger wheel though, but still, which tires did you end up buying?
Yeah. So knowing that I wasn't going to drive the car during the winter months as much, right? And it's funny because this year is the exception. There's been days where it's been 60, 70 degrees in this part of the country. And it's been crazy. That's great. And no snow.
Wow.
So with that, and usually we get a ton of snow at this time of the year. But I actually I did a lot of research, did a lot of reviews, talked with some folks, and I just went with an all-season tire. I did with Continental Extreme and the Extreme Sport Contact, I believe, is the DWS06s. Okay. And they've been really, really good. And fast forward to maybe when I need to replace these, I probably would go for your standard Michelin sports, Pilot Sports. But right now, these are doing. I got a really good deal on them. They're doing perfect for what I'm using it for.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So you said the IMS was done. So the IMS was done by LN Engineering, which everyone knows, if they know Porsche, that they're the people to get it done from.
That's right.
What about the clutch? How did you go when you put the car in for an inspection? Did the clutch was okay? It wasn't slipping? There was no issues?
Great question. So when they did the LN Engineering IMS bearing, they replaced the flywheel and the clutch at the same time.
Okay.
And when I purchased the car, it had 59,000 miles, and they did if I'm not mistaken, they did the IMS bearing with the flywheel and the clutch at 49,000 miles.
Oh, really?
In 2015.
Oh, okay. Well, that's great. That's only 10,000 miles, so that's fantastic. And so you've got a new clutch, you've got the IMS issue sorted, and the car's good to go. There's nothing else wrong with it.
Exactly.
Going back to the sound, you've got the Cabriolet, you've got the top down. You said it didn't have a PSE exhaust. Are you intending on making the exhaust throatier? Are you intending on updating the exhaust to the Fister mod, or are you going to get something more expensive like the car graphic exhaust, or are you just going to leave it as it is? Is it enough?
So I think you put the Fister exhaust on your 997, correct?
Yeah, I do. I have. Yeah.
And and we were talking about options, and it just came standard, no frills, no exhaust on it. And when I purchased the car, it actually had a Fab Speed exhaust.
Oh, okay.
And so, and it had a K&N intake and a Fab Speed exhaust. Those were the only two modifications that were done to the car, and that's what sold me on it. And yes, it's absolutely it's incredible. I love the sound.
Yeah, a lot of people choose the Fab Speed for the 996. That's great. So it had a really good sound. So that's all sorted. So when did you pick up the car? What month was it?
It was August of 2020. So right in the thick of everything that was going on at the time.
So August. So you've only had it a few months. It's very new.
That's right.
And you're not driving it you're not driving it at the moment because you're thinking it's going to be snow and be the Chicago winter that that it's known for, or so you put it away for the winter?
Yeah, so it's stored right now. It's actually stored at my father-in-law's house, where his 911 was
Okay.
in that same exact spot. And so I'm here in Chicago, and they're back in the Metro Detroit area. And so yeah, it's stored for the winter. We're actually driving back to Detroit area here this weekend, and I plan on starting it up. And if it's decent weather out, it's supposed to be 45 degrees Fahrenheit, 50 degrees Fahrenheit. Maybe I'll take it around the neighborhood. We'll see.
So tell me how you felt. Tell me the feeling when you picked up the car. It might have been before you went and got the inspection done and everything was ticked off and everything's great. But that the first drive when you drove the car and you thought, wow, this is everything that I wanted. This is everything that I imagined. Do you remember that drive? Because everyone normally remembers that moment when it hits you.
100% remember. And what I remember is the previous owner, he explicitly told me, he said, hey, make sure you get it up past 4,000 and get on it. And he told me, he's like, get on it. And that was in hindsight, that was his selling point, right?
Yep.
He's like, take the top down and drive the thing. And so I obliged, and I listened, and sure enough, took the top down, and I took it around the highway. And on the on-ramp, I got on it from first to third. And wow, it was, for those that, have an intake, and for those that have the Fab Speed exhaust on the 996, they know exactly. And, no different than probably the 997, but I think this one was eye-opening to me to hear it. And then also and everyone here knows it's not by any means the fastest car on the road, but it's got enough power for you to put a smile on your face. And that sound was intoxicating.
So the Fab Speed as well will be a lot lighter than the stock exhaust, I think. From memory, the Fab Speed's quite a lot lighter. So you're getting a little bit of
That's right.
in a power bump there as well, aren't you? As well as the
That's right.
as well as the other mod. So you are getting a bit more power. You're getting a better sound. What else? So what now? So it doesn't sound like you really need to do much to it. So the Cabriolet, being a 2002, how was the condition of the top? Was the top in good condition?
That's another good question, Michael. So the top was in phenomenal condition. One of the things that I actually had to sort out after about a month was actually one of the I think it was one of the motors in the Cabriolet.
Yes.
And so I was going out to golf with a buddy of mine, and we both put our clubs. I laid the back seats down, and we put our clubs down. I put the convertible top down, and as we were pulling up to the golf course, I put the car, I parked the car, and I'm pressing the Cabriolet button to close, and it's not moving. And I'm like, okay. Oh Lord, what happened here? Right. And so yeah, one of the things that I had to do was sort that out. And it was one of the motors for the Cabriolet. Again, Midwest Performance Cars. They did a really nice job sorting that out. Their guys there are phenomenal. And so I had to sort out the Cabriolet, but other than that, the thing is in great condition.
Is that an expensive fix for the motor for the top, the Cabriolet top?
It is. It isn't cheap. And so, they had to order the part from Porsche Germany, because I guess one of the things my memory is jogging now, one of the parts that this part specifically was now was a 997 part now that they put in the 996.
Okay.
So there was none in the US. And so they had to order the parts directly from Porsche overseas and then ship it over. And I think it was, it wasn't cheap. Let's just say that for the Cabriolet. Yeah.
So that's not a common thing that goes on the Cabriolet tops when you put it into Porsche to fix it. It's not a common thing. So they don't carry stock of that part. It's not. I would think that would be quite a common thing on old Cabriolets where that would actually go.
You would think so as well. I thought as well. And so when he came back to me, he said, hey, it's going to take some time because we got to order the part from overseas. Yeah. And there was no parts in, the big dealers here in the Chicagoland area, none in, the West Coast in California, none in the South in Miami. And so I was surprised just as much as you are, Michael. And I thought, hey, maybe I'll get it back within, a few days. And I actually ended up taking it back home, and I think it was about maybe a week, and then I took it back into the shop and they had the part and sorted it out, and then off I went.
But that's pretty good, though. I mean, you didn't really, you haven't really had to spend that much money on it. It was pretty much perfect. I don't want you to divulge the price, but the price that you paid, was it low, medium, or high for that model and for a Cabriolet?
Yeah. So I would say I got a really good deal. in August of 2020. I think everyone knows now the 996 market is steadily going north and going up.
Yeah.
You can see it in all on P-Car Market, on Cars and Bids, on Bring a Trailer. And so I paid between 15 and 20,000 US for this.
That's fantastic.
And you know, after doing a lot of research, I quickly realized that I got a really good deal, especially in this time right now.
Yeah, because the Cabriolet, and I'm gonna quote Australian prices like I always do. That Cabriolet that you have, in the condition that from the photos that you were showing me, the images you sent me, I know one came up in Autohouse Hamilton where I take my car in Sydney, and I think it was about 45,000 Australian. So 45,000 Australian is probably about 30 odd thousand US, 33,000 US, I think.
That sounds about right. That sounds about right.
I think that's about it.
Wow.
So, and that was the cheapest one. I mean, there are some there's another really good one for sale, same as yours. I think it's 2003, Carrera Cabriolet Silver, and guy wants 59,000 Australian dollars for
it. I saw, Michael, I actually.
So the price you have is really good. Yeah. But I still think, and I don't know if you've heard the podcast where I've said this before, I really do think, I was talking about this the other night. I did a live chat with Ajmal, flat cap driver that I did a previous owner's stories with. Actually, last night. I think it was last night I did. I can't remember. And we're talking about, what is it about the 912, the classic 912, that people want them now? And it's kind of like, and Ajmal said a very important thing, I think. It's like these cars that people used to think used to be second best or ugly are no longer like that. Right. All of a sudden, the whole mindset has changed. The 912, the 914, the 996. And those three cars, in general, are all going up. You know what I mean?
That's right.
And then you've got the Cabriolet, and I keep referring to this, and I don't know whether you saw it on Instagram, on Porsche's Instagram page. They put that image of the Cabriolet that is on display in the museum in Stuttgart with the surfboard on the roof and the hardtop. And I'm telling you, that alone tells you, you know what I mean? And then there was the video on the Porsche channel. Did you see that, where the guy has his surfboard where he throws it in the back and then he goes around the winding grounds? I don't know, it was California. I think it might be an owner's story, proper actual owner, and that whole thing with the Cabriolet. And it's cool. And people, you know what I mean? You don't have to have, a coupe. You don't have to have, and I've spoken to other people in owner stories that have it in a Tiptronic or have it in the PDK, You've got the manual, so you've got a good transmission. I was going to say, you said your wife really, really liked the Cabriolet idea in the 911. Does she drive? That's right. Does she drive stick? Does she drive manual?
She doesn't, but she's always no, she does not. But she always is game for a ride and game for a drive around the city. But yeah, I agree with you. I think, the purists out there will look at the Cabriolet and say, oh, it's not a coupe and, it's heavier. And guys, we're talking about, 50, 75 pounds. Sure, it's heavier, but I'm not taking my car out to the track and running. You know what I mean? I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying the drive. I'm enjoying the experience on public roads. And, still, I think the Mark II Cabriolet, I want to say it's 3,050 pounds. Right. And the 991 or 996.1 Mark I is 2,900 or 2,950. So it's still a very light vehicle.
Yeah. See, even at the Australian prices, Ryan, even at 45 to 55,000 Australian dollars, right? I still think, I'm a fan of the 996 Cabriolet. I've said it before. I think for value for money for the car you're getting, I would choose the 996 Cabriolet over the Boxster, of course, because it is a 911. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I think if you can get one like at the price you've bought yours at, or if you can get one, even in Australia or the UK at £20,000 or, under 40,000 Australian dollars, you've got a really, really good car, which is just going to keep its value and keep appreciating. And I think that's what's great about it. So since you've had it, you've been driving it a little bit. Have you thought about other things you'd like to do to it? Are you going to do any other modifications? Are you going to add carbon like what Steve does? Are you going to add more leather parts like I've been buying up leather parts like crazy?
Sure.
What's the plan?
So I think for me, the one thing, it's funny, I had it in my cart a couple times and I just didn't pull the trigger. but I follow. I don't know if you follow 996 Road Trip. He's
Yes, I do.
yeah, Brock, and he inspired me to look at the Fab Speed intake, and it's the carbon fiber dual intake with the competition air intake
Yes,
from
yes,
Fab Speed.
yes, yes, yes.
And so, I was doing some research, and not only is it carbon fiber and it just looks incredible,
Yeah, it looks very
but
good.
it looks awesome. And,
Yeah.
and I've been told that it from a performance perspective, it's definitely worth the money, which is the biggest piece for me. And so I contemplated about buying it. I had it in my cart a few times, and I got, notifications or emails from FabSpeed. Hey, you left this in your cart. What can we do to help make sure that this is a good purchase
How
for you?
much
So
is
on
that,
and so
Ryan?
forth.
How much is it?
It's 1,000 US,
1,000 US.
1,000 US. And it's not a lot of money, but it's not, just change left around the table. But then there was also, Brock gave me a discount code because he's got a partnership with FabSpeed for 10% off. So it's, it turns out to be, 900 plus shipping and whatnot.
Does
so
he have that on his car, does he? Sorry, does he actually have that on his 996?
He does.
I haven't seen those images. He's got that on his 996. Wow, okay, I'll have to check that out.
He does. And so that would be the only short-term thing that I would consider doing. Other than that, I'm just enjoying it. I'm just, loving it. And, we'll see what next year brings.
That's interesting, actually, because, a lot of people, when I speak to them, they have this list of things they want to do. You know what I mean? And I think it's kind of, and I'm not making fun of the other people, but it's refreshing that, the experience that you wanted, you knew you wanted the Cabriolet. The car's it's already got the exhaust on, it's got the Fab Speed. And the other thing you want to do, because the experience is there, you've got that experience already. What you're thinking about is getting that little bit of extra power. You know what I mean? Getting that little bit of extra power, which will add to your experience. But it's not about all the cosmetic things. It's more about the performance and that side of it. And that's where you're looking at, yeah?
That's exactly spot on. I knew at this, my first 911, I wanted to be able to jump in, and it 100% needed to be a manual transmission, no frills, no nannies, no, PASM or, traction control. I wanted it to be a pure driver's car. And that's what, that's what I got. And so, and ultimately at the end of the day, one that I know won't break the bank, and one that I know will certainly fulfill the experience that you and I have been talking about, and it certainly has.
Well, I think it's fantastic because you've got a 2-car Porsche garage. You haven't just got a 1-car Porsche garage. You've got the Macan and you've got the 911. So, to people who are trying to get on the train, so to speak, to people who are wanting to get into the Porsche, the brand, you've got the perfect combination, really. And Steve has that combination as well. Of course, he has a GT3, but it's the Macan is a great car. It really is. And as long as you've got the 911, it's fine. It doesn't matter what model it is. So let's get on to. I always like to ask the question, what next? You know what I mean?
Yes.
So you've had the taste of air-cooled from your father-in-law, and I keep going on about how beautiful it is, but it really was a beautiful car. What 911 would you like to get next after this one? You've got the Bug, right? So you're going to keep this one for a little while. You've only just bought it, but let's just think about what would come next.
Yeah, great question. I already know what I think I'm going to get next.
Okay. And
it's just a matter of time when I find the right one.
I think you told me as well, so I actually think I know, but tell the listeners what you're going to get next. That's a good choice.
So once you find the one, everyone knows this. Once you find that clean example and you see it, you just have to have it. And so for me, I think, I'm going to make the jump, and I think I'm going to get a 996 GT3. I think that's on my list of potential next cars. That's definitely up there in the top 3, maybe number 1.
Perfect.
And so, I just love the 996 generation. People, as everyone knows, people bash on the headlights. I love the headlights. I think it sticks out and is unique compared to all others. But for me, the next car, I would really love to find a nice, clean example of a 996 GT3 in the next year. We'll see.
In the next year. Okay. Yeah. So the GT3 996, would you get a 0.1 or would you get a 0.2? I mean, I watched and I don't know whether you watched it with Andreas Prutinger and Chris Harris when they were going through all the GT3s in the
Yes.
Porsche shed, I will call it, the Porsche shed that we all want to own.
Exactly.
And obviously AP didn't have a lot to do with the Mark 1. He had more to do with the Mark 2, but he said the Mark 2 is the one. It's the lighter one. It's the better car. So is that where you're going? Is that the direction?
Honestly, at this point in time, Michael, I would take either one. I would need to, I don't got my heart set on a specific, either it's a .1 or .2. I'd love to test drive both. But there is one on the market right now that's not too far. They're asking for, I want to say 75,000. It's in basalt black.
That is so cheap. Seriously, that is so cheap.
75,000 US. And I'll be honest, there was one from Puerto Rico not too long ago. I don't know if you've seen that one, but the guy ran away with it. The buyer ran away with it. It was a 996 GT3 Mark II from Puerto Rico. And I don't have it out in front of me, but I want to say he got it for like 60,000 US.
Really?
And it had maybe 40,000 miles on it, which the miles don't scare me. And so if I can find one in a clean example around that, I'm all in.
Yeah, that's a really good price. I mean, Australian prices are around about 140 upwards Australian. So work that out in conversion. It's a lot more.
Yeah.
But then there's a lot online. There's a really nice silver one which I mentioned once before. It's about 180,000 Australian dollars. 180,000.
Wow.
And when I was looking at them, and this is probably my biggest regret, Ryan, and I have spoken about it before, is not buying the GT3 when I was looking at it, the 996 GT3s. And at that time, that was when they were the lowest, and they were around 95,000 Australian dollars, around about.
Wow.
For a very low mile, for a 38,000, 40,000 kilometer car, so very low miles, yeah.
What year was that when you were looking?
That was 6 years ago. Maybe 7 years ago, 6 or 7 years ago. So a reasonable time, but still they have really, really jumped up and they've become very, very popular. I mean, the GT3 is great. 99, like I agree with you. A 996.1, even though AP said the 0.2 is better, that's probably because he worked on it. 996.1, I like the wheels on the 0.1. The 0.1 has something which is a bit rawer. I think people, when you read reviews about it, it's more of a race car. A lot of people say it's a bit more, not twitchy, but it's more of an experience. Some people say the 0.2 is a bit softened down. I don't know if that's true or not. I haven't driven one, but I think it's a great choice for your next 911. And in the next year, I'd be interested to know that story. And you have to keep in contact and tell me if you eventually get one.
Absolutely,
that's a great car. I do speak to another guy on Instagram who's been contacting me from Australia, and he just purchased one actually. I just can't think of his name at the moment, and he's just purchased one, and he sent me some images. It's a great looking car. It's simple, it's clean.
That's right.
It's almost in disguise. You wouldn't know it was that powerful and that much fun to drive.
Right. So I did look at the it was on PE Car Market.
Yes.
And it was a 2004 GT3, so Mark II 996, and it sold for 56,000 US, and it had.
That's crazy.
It's crazy, and it sold for 56 US, and it had. I'm looking for the miles right now. It had. Where's the mileage here?
So you were tempted to buy this one? You were watching it?
I didn't see it. I didn't even look. My buddy shared it with me, and he's like, "Can you imagine?" Oh, 36,000 miles on it.
And it sold for 56,000 US plus the fee, which is only a couple of grand, right? PCAR market.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
That's a great purchase.
And as you know, the first GT3. Granted, this is a Mark II, but the first GT3, the only way that car is going up over the next 5 to 10 to 15 years.
Yes, right? Absolutely. You've got to get in. You've got to get in quickly. But you would sell the Cabriolet, or you'd keep the Cabriolet?
I would keep it. And add to the garage.
Yep, fantastic.
So I would keep the Cabriolet and then and have the GT3, and then still have the Macan, obviously.
Yeah, because you found such a great example in the Cabriolet. Why give it up? You know what I mean? And
that's right.
And it's only going to appreciate as well. So you may as well keep it and enjoy it. And it's a different experience to the GT3. So Chicago, this question I always like to ask, Ryan, favorite drives in the area where you live or somewhere in America? What is the road? If someone comes to Chicago, I've only been there once before, but someone comes to Chicago, they want to go for a drive. Where should they take their 911 or where should they take their sports car? Where would you like to take
Sure.
your 911 when the weather goes back to being warm again?
Yeah. So to that first question, the only place to take it on in and around the city is on Lakeshore Drive. And other than that, there's unfortunately not that many great roads compared to some of the other parts of the country. But Lakeshore Drive, if you ever get a chance and an opportunity, take a car on Lakeshore Drive, go north on it, and then come back south and turn around and come back south, where you have the lake on your left-hand side and you have the whole city skyline in front of you. It is a drive, and I've driven quite a bit across the country. It is one drive that I'll always appreciate.
Is that the road when you're driving into Chicago and all the skyline is here and you're going along the bottom, like down below almost?
So that's in
or is that a
that runs
freeway?
parallel. That's parallel. So it's that what you're talking about is below. That's lower Wacker Drive, so to speak.
Okay.
And Lakeshore Drive is on the top side. So you're literally in parallel with the Lake Michigan, and on the right hand side you've got the whole city skyline.
Yeah, I remember being in a car
alongside
and
me.
driving on that and seeing that, and it was just fabulous to see the city. The city was just, that road was just amazing. It was a really great view. Yeah, really beautiful city, Chicago. Absolutely beautiful city. All right, what else? I think we're almost at the end. We're almost at the end, Ryan.
Sure.
We've actually been talking for almost an hour. So other obsessions, I know you're a watch guy as well. What have you bought?
Yes.
What have you got?
So
This is going to bore the people. This is going to bore the people who don't like watches. But I always like to, we always have a common bond. It's always Porsches and Rolex, or Porsches and something else. I mean, I've got
exactly.
Yeah, you've got your Explorer on. I've got my BLNR on, my Batgirl, I guess we can call it.
Love it.
Which I don't wear that much, but it's a really nice watch. The Explorer 2 is beautiful. Huh? You got the white face. Have you had that for some time?
Yeah, so I actually I bought this as a wedding gift back in 2017. So about 3 years ago. It's the 165710 Polar Explorer 2 40 millimeter, and this is my daily driver, so to speak. It's fantastic, and the serial on this is
Sorry, Ryan, that's the red hand or the orange hand, the same as mine?
It's the red hand. It's the red hand.
You've got the red hand.
Yep.
Okay. So you bought it vintage. You bought a special one.
Yeah, and so it's a 2004, which is a special deal for me. And then my next purchase was actually right before. Let me see here. So right after I bought the Macan, I had a milestone in my career, and I kind of went and splurged, and I bought a GMT 116710 LN, which is the black face and the green, GMT script with the green hand.
Yep.
And so that one is in my collection as well.
Yeah, that's a really nice watch. I can say, I guess, work with someone who bought that reasonably recently from Bahrain. They actually had one left. It was discontinued, but they had one.
Oh, wow.
And he actually bought it. And when he told me, I said, that was a really good buy. I said, because I bought my Rolexes from Rolex in Bahrain, and they didn't tell me they had that out the back. And I think we bought it about the same time, but he didn't really publicize that he bought it. He kept it to himself. But I think that's a great one, actually. The green script, it's a really nice one.
Yeah.
In fact, I like it better than the LVs and the green bezel. In all honesty,
Sure.
or the Hulk.
The
to me,
Hulks. Yeah. Yep.
I did ask at Rolex in Bahrain the other day, where I've been buying my watches. I did ask them before I left and came to London, what's the chance of you getting me the green Submariner? And they said basically no chance. He literally laughed at me. He literally laughed at me. Like, I've bought 4 or 5 Rolexes from them now, and he literally still laughed at me. And
it's incredible.
It's to do with the green, and it's to do with in the Middle East. Most of the Arabs really like green watches. So
is that right?
So the APs with the green face, the green dial, you can't get. Rolexes
Can't get
with
that.
green. The Oyster Perpetual 41, the new one in green, forget about it.
Those Oyster Perpetuals are going crazy. They're going crazy.
Yeah, and there's a guy on YouTube who is in Australia, and he's a farmer, and he collects watches. And he has a really basic YouTube channel, and he just shows off all these Rolexes, and he has vintage ones and new ones. His name's Jimmy Split, I think it is.
Okay.
And he just bought the Oyster Perpetual with the silver face, the silver dial.
Yep.
And I would have overlooked that watch, but after I saw it, it's just a really, really beautiful
Striking.
watch. It's a striking
Sure.
watch, and it's it's a
Sure.
very, I don't think it's, I wouldn't say conservative, but it's a very classic Rolex watch. But it's, I tell you, I know everyone's looking at the green and the blue and all of that, but honestly, that
Yeah.
silver dial version of that OP41, if you could get one, I know they're selling for like, a couple of grand above retail now as well, which is
Retail.
crazy.
Right. It's crazy.
But yeah. So what's
Something
next?
about something about for the simplicity and the classic, just no frills again, just a standard, no complication Oyster Perpetual. To your point, it's just striking, and the dial that they had put on those it just pops, and I love it.
Yeah, and the double markers at the hours are really, it's just nice. That newer dial is really, really beautiful. But the Explorer 2, I mean, I love yours. I was actually looking, when I didn't think I could get the one I bought, the black dial, the new version, the 42 millimeter. I was actually looking at yours. I was actually thinking about getting one from Chrono, from a seller.
Sure.
But then
sure.
then it came up. Then they got one in stock for me, so I bought it. Coincidentally, I actually had the choice of a white and a black dial. They actually had the white in stock. I could have bought either one. I tried the white, and I really, I don't have anything wrong. I know the white is probably more collectible, but for me, the white, for some reason, and my wife was with me at the time, the white just does not suit my wrist. It just did not suit me. So
fair enough.
But I bought the black, and for me, the Rolex Explorer 2, it's like an everyday. It's an everyday Rolex. It's one you just wear all the time. And it looks fantastic.
Agree.
And it looks fantastic. Yeah.
Completely agree. I think it's so my skin tone's a little bit darker than yours.
Yeah, which is why I think it works. That's why it didn't work on me. Yeah.
Right. And I think the contrast of the dial is important. And so when people are going out and looking for watches, I always recommend them. You got to try it on, and you got to see how the dial sits on your wrist and on your skin tone.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I tried on day dates and date just when I was there that they had, and they don't work on me.
Right.
But the OP41, they had one in another color, and it did actually look okay. That's great, Ryan. Thanks for sharing that. It's good to talk to a fellow watch lover. So what's next on your watch list? Is there another brand you're going to buy? Something else apart from a Rolex?
So I had a Omega Seamaster 300 Master, the coaxial with the 369 dial.
Yes.
I love the 369 dial. I ended up selling that, and I've been looking for a 1016 Explorer, and one that is eventually going to be in my collection. I'm not in any rush, but it needs to be it needs to be my birth year. And so that's going to be a super special watch that eventually I'll somehow find, and that one's on my list. But outside of that, nothing that's sticking out to me. How about from your side?
I'm actually, and people, I'm actually wanting to get another Panerai.
Oh, okay, Panerai.
And I know it's very weird because people aren't really, it's not on people's radar at the moment. And I already have a few. I do actually have a few of them already. But I want the one from 2006, 2007. And a seller in the US has one. He's been sitting on it for a long time. So I'm just watching it just to see if it just sits there. And it's the Californian dial. It's called a PAM 249. And it was a limited
PAM 249.
PAM 249, and it was a limited edition in 2006, 2007. So that is something that I would buy, but there's plenty. I mean, my Chrono 24 app is just full of favorites, just the things that I'm watching, just in case. But I have to stop for a while. My wife told me I can't buy any more watches. I've got no more room to store them anyway. So, Ryan, that's been great. Thank you so much for.
So is it this one right here?
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, yep. And it's got a blue hand.
I love that.
Yeah, it's a fantastic watch.
That's a really cool watch.
Yeah, it. At the time, that watch, and I know people who are wanting to hear more Porsche talk are probably getting bored about this, but that Panerai, when it came out, it was really expensive. Like people were buying up and buying it above list and whatever. And then because Panerai has gone off the boil a little bit, which I reckon is coming back very, very soon. And I still think that if you want to get a watch that you're going to make, not lose any money on, buy Panerai, because they're really low at the moment. The secondhand prices are way too low.
I completely agree with you.
And especially the special editions, limited editions like that one, the ones that are a little bit limited, they're the ones you should be looking for. And they're the ones that are going to be, you got to like the watch. Don't just buy it because it's limited edition. But I think that's a great dial. I think it really is a great dial.
It's beautiful.
All right, Ryan, thank you so much. Thanks for being on Owner Stories. It was great talking to you. We seem to have a lot in common, so that's good. Porsches, Rolex.
Yeah.
Anything else before we go? You want to tell the listeners?
No, I think, Michael, thanks for having me. And I've been following, your channel and your content, and it's been enlightening, and I love it. It's I think this time is this time of the year, and this year certainly for everyone, it's certainly great to have an outlet and to try to network and meet new people, and given the circumstances. But anytime we have things in common like cars and watches and whatnot, it's always great to expand and meet new people. And so I appreciate you having me on the podcast.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's great that we can sort of reach out and connect with each other and just chat during these times. It's fantastic. Thank you, Ryan.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. I love your car.
Thank you.
I think you've got a good one. It seems, you've got a really good one. You trusted the seller. It was well sorted. You didn't really have to do much to it, and you love it. That's the main thing. So well done.
Thank you.
All right, everyone. That was Ryan from the US, from Chicago. That's it for the PorscheCooled podcast today. This is Owner Stories. I hope I haven't got this number wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's Owner Stories number 16. Like I said, I have been recording a few of these to get them so I can have a few weeks off in January. But thanks for listening today, and bye for now.